There's no getting around the fact that what was on the mind of the liberals that night in Brentwood, or wherever we may have been, was that the most powerful witch hunters now were coming from Twitter, the Ivy League, and the progressive left. J.K. Rowling used to be a villain to the right because she wrote books about witchcraft. Now she's a villain to the...
What happens when one of Hollywood's most liberal voices decides to stop protecting the club and start telling the truth about it? Not carefully, not diplomatically, but on live television, in front of a studio audience with names, numbers, and receipts. That is exactly what happened. And what came out of that room that night wasn't just a comedy monologue. It was a confession, a reckoning. The kind of moment that only happens when someone has finally run out of patience for the performance. Bill Maher looked at his own world, the celebrities, the causes, the endless moral posturing, and said something that almost no one in that industry has the nerve to say. What he said next didn't just make headlines. It exposed a fault line running straight through the heart of American liberalism.
Ricky's right. Celebrities don't know about the real world. So Democrats, it's great you have all the big celebs, but people see them as an arm of the Democratic Party, which they already suspect for lacking common sense. I know the celebrities mean well, and we thank them for having their heart in the right place, but just do you. Do what you do so well. Use your extraordinary talents for the noble cause of bringing relief from the problems that ribbons and pins can't fix. I know it's very important to you that you feel that you're making a difference, so let me assure you, you are. You're making independents vote Republican.
The 2024 election didn't just end a campaign, it ended an era. For decades, the assumption inside Hollywood was straightforward. Align your brand with the right stars, flood the airwaves with famous faces, and the public would follow. It didn't work. Not even close. When the most decorated celebrity endorsement machine in modern American political history couldn't move a voting bloc it was specifically designed to reach, something fundamental had broken. And Maher had been warning about exactly this for years. The backlash isn't complicated. When people who live behind security gates and travel by private jet stand in front of a camera to tell working Americans what to think, the response is rarely gratitude. It's resentment. And in 2024, that resentment finally showed up at the ballot box in numbers that couldn't be explained away.
It's just not in us, including me. And I'm tired of living a... well, not a lie, but it's also something I never mention. But it's a new year, and I'd like to come clean. My name is Bill. And I fly private. And so does every other person who calls themselves an environmentalist who can. Now enjoy this fun photo collage of some of your favorite stars and politicians who speak about the need to reduce our carbon footprint, but who are always on private planes. That's right, all of them. If you don't see a celebrity's picture here, it's because we weren't allowed to use it. Or their series got canceled. But all the environmentalists of Hollywood and Washington do
5 words. That's all it took. And the audience didn't just laugh. They erupted. Because in a culture where admissions like this are carefully managed, quietly buried, or spun into something palatable, Maher just said it straight into the microphone. No apology, no asterisk. And the data behind that moment is genuinely staggering. Private aviation isn't a rounding error on the global carbon ledger. It's a structural problem, concentrated at the very top of the income pyramid, driven almost entirely by the same class of people who spend their public lives calling for urgent climate action. The gap between the message and the lifestyle isn't a minor inconsistency. It's the whole story.
Their position on climate change is, we must do more to stop pouring carbon into the air, except for me when I want to go somewhere and then I take a private jet. turns out there is one thing in this world that is completely impossible to resist, and this is it. It's like heroin. If you do it once, you'll never stop. There are two kinds of people in the world, those who fly private and those who would if they could. A third category, those who could but do not, does not exist. Except for Ed Begley and Greta Thunberg. And that's why you never see a picture of her smiling. Ed and Greta, that's who walks the walk. Everyone else is...
Here is what makes that moment sting beyond the punchline. Every single person Maher just described knows what they're doing. This isn't ignorance. Nobody boarding a private jet thinks they're flying commercial. The argument has always been necessity. Schedules, security, logistics, the unique demands of extraordinary careers. But Maher just dismantled that argument from the inside because he made it for years himself. When the person who used to justify it is the same person now calling it out, the justification collapses entirely. And the two names he left standing, the ones who actually don't do it, only make the contrast sharper. Ed Begley Jr. and Greta Thunberg. Not exactly a star-studded guest list, which is kind of the point.
I can take being a bad environmentalist because almost all of us are, but I can't take being a hypocrite. Now, I always justified renting a plane because I only used it for work and literally could not get to most of my stand-up gigs on time any other way. How do you think I did it all those years? I said goodnight here at 8 p.m. and was on stage in Vegas at 10. But I don't need to do stand-up, like tomorrow night in Albuquerque. And outside of heads of state, almost everyone else could fly commercial. Why don't they? Ask anyone who tried to get home for Christmas last year.
This is where Maher stops being funny and starts being forensic. Because what he's describing isn't hypocrisy as a character flaw. He's describing it as an industry standard. The private jet isn't the exception among environmentally vocal celebrities. It's the norm. The numbers confirm it. And the man who said those numbers out loud on national television isn't a conservative commentator with an agenda. He's one of them. He flies private. He knows who else does. And that is precisely why the confession lands the way it does. When the critique comes from inside the house, it can't be dismissed as partisan attack. It just has to be absorbed. And absorbed, it is devastating.
And resist it. John Kerry is our climate czar, and he uses a private jet. It's like if the Secretary of Homeland Security smuggled drugs in his body. People take jets to environmental conferences. If you could run TED Talks on hypocrisy, you wouldn't need coal. But sorry, not sorry. I tried to do my part for the environment. I never had kids. The one thing worse for the planet than private jets. It's true, because then they had kids. I had the first generation Prius in 2001. It looked like a Tylenol gel cap. I was always handing my keys to valets who were driving a better car than me. I had the first Tesla in 2000.
Coal and plastic, two of the most cited symbols of environmental failure. And Maher just turned them into the environmental movement's biggest credibility problem, because the argument that individual consumer behavior is the primary lever for solving climate change has always required one thing to function. The numbers have to move. They haven't. Not meaningfully. Not in nearly half a century of sustained public pressure. And while regular households were taught to feel personally responsible for global warming by the choices they made at the grocery store, the aggregate data didn't budge. The blue recycling bin became something more than a sorting system. It became a guilt transfer mechanism, a way to make the public feel like participants in a solution, while the actual structural drivers of the problem continued almost entirely unchanged. Maher's point isn't that environmentalism is wrong. His point is that the performance of it has become a substitute for the actual.
In 1973, the share of global electricity generated by coal was 38%. You know what it was 46 years later in 2019 after all the talk and all the trying? 37%. You know what percentage of plastic gets recycled? 5%. Those blue bins that are everywhere, they're not full of bottles, they're full. Can you blame us for being a little cynical when you find out that all that plastic that we've been painstakingly separating out for the last 20 years all goes to the same place anyway? So yes, it's fun to laugh at powerful people. That's how I can afford to fly private. But
A private dinner party in Brentwood, a room full of some of the most recognizable faces on Earth. And the topic on the table was not a Republican threat or a conservative backlash. It was their own side. The conversation that Hollywood has in public and the conversation it has in private have quietly become two very different things, and Maher just blew the door open on that gap. Because cancel culture, for years, has been framed in mainstream media as a right-wing talking point, a myth manufactured by people who just didn't want to face accountability. But behind closed doors, in the living rooms of the very people most vocal about progressive values, the concern was real, the frustration was genuine, and the fear of saying any of it out loud in public was unanimous. That silence has a cost, and Maher just broke it.
About a new award show. Listen to this. About a year and a half ago, I was asked to moderate a discussion at the home of a very prominent Hollywood producer. And the attendees that night was a who's who of A-listers and stars. If a bomb went off in that room, there'd be nothing on TV next year, but, well, let's just say it would be a great year for Kevin Sorbo. I can't say exactly who was there, but if there really is a Jewish space laser, these guys have the code. Anyway, the subject we all wanted to talk about that night was cancel culture. And it's funny, if this was 10 years ago, this group would have been talking about censorship from the right. Back then it was the Jerry Falwells and Pat Roberts.
J.K. Rowling, the woman who introduced an entire generation to the idea that stories could change your life. Critics say Maher chose this example deliberately because the numbers make the industry's position almost impossible to defend logically. Over 600 million books sold, a franchise worth more than $25 billion, a cultural footprint that stretches across every continent on Earth, and the same entertainment industry that built its entire family-friendly image on her imagination has spent years trying to distance itself from her name. Maher's case isn't about agreeing or disagreeing with the underlying debate. His case is simpler and harder to refute. When an industry turns on its own greatest asset, for reasons that have nothing to do with quality and everything to do with ideological compliance, it has stopped being a creative industry. It has become something else entirely.
But there's no getting around the fact that what was on the mind of the liberals that night in Brentwood, or wherever we may have been, was that the most powerful witch hunters now were coming from Twitter, the Ivy League, and the progressive left. J.K. Rowling used to be a villain to the right because she wrote books about witchcraft. Now she's a villain to the left because she has the crazy belief that there's more to being a woman than pronouns and lipstick. So that was the point of the evening. How do we take a stand against cancel culture? And I suggested, since we were mostly all in show business, that we start an award show to honor the brave people who have fought back. Well,
Ted Sarandos, Netflix CEO, the one executive in the room who said no to the pressure campaign. And then watched the numbers roll in. When the walkout happened, the conventional wisdom inside the industry was clear. Cave, apologize, pull the content, signal your values, and move on. Sarandos didn't. He told his own employees that Netflix existed to make content for the widest possible audience, and that if that mission felt incompatible with their values, the company would understand. It was the kind of corporate statement that almost never gets made publicly in modern Hollywood. Maher's whole point is that it worked, not just commercially, but culturally. The mob, as Maher would put it, did not win that one. And the reason it lost is because someone in a position of actual power decided not to flint.
This next cojones goes to a man who's dear to my heart for standing up for stand-up. When dozens of Netflix employees walked out over Dave Chappelle's reckless decision to perform comedy on his comedy special. CEO Ted Sarandos could have pulled the special and replaced it with more episodes of Who Wants to Watch Koreans Get... But instead, he reminded his Netflix employees that comedy exists to push boundaries and told them if you'd find it hard to support our content breadth, Netflix may not be the best place for you.
Tom Hanks, America's most trusted actor, for decades the one Hollywood figure that seemed to exist above the culture wars entirely. And now he's voluntarily removed himself from roles he would have played without a second thought 30 years ago, and called it the right call. Critics say this is Maher's cleanest example of how deep the overcorrection has gone. Because this isn't about representation. It's about the fundamental premise of the craft itself. Acting has always been the art of disappearing into someone else's experience. That's the entire point of it. When the industry begins drawing lines around who is allowed to inhabit which kinds of stories, it isn't becoming more honest, it's becoming more rigid. And Maher's frustration isn't directed at the conversation, it's directed at the conclusion.
Interview this week, Tom Hanks said Hollywood wouldn't cast him as a today. Oh, Philadelphia, right. And Tom Hanks said, rightly so. Oh. Tom, always on the right side, remember. Do you agree with this sentiment? I don't. I mean, he's an actor. What is this insanity?
He might be right in the sense that Hollywood might not cast him.
No, he said rightly so.
That's the part where he's wrong.
I agree. I think he's wrong. Yeah, there, I've said it. Tom Hanks can be wrong.
The Academy Awards, once the undisputed symbol of cinematic achievement, and according to Maher, now something closer to a political compliance test with a red carpet attached. The diversity framework the Academy introduced was built on a genuine concern that certain voices had been systematically excluded from the industry for generations. That concern is legitimate. What Maher is challenging isn't the goal, it's the method. Because replacing one set of gatekeeping criteria with another set of gatekeeping criteria doesn't dismantle the gatekeeping. It just changes who controls the gate. And the result, Maher argues, is an institution so consumed with the optics of its own values that it has quietly stopped asking the only question that should matter. Is it good?
But come on, man, can we live in the present? No Academy member this year filled out their ballot thinking, well, I didn't think Chalamet was very good, but I'll vote for him because he's white. Hollywood isn't a secret cabal of racists. It's a secret cabal of people terrified of looking like racists. And I'm just tired of, no matter how much progress is made, social justice warriors feeling the need to gaslight us as if none of it had happened. A couple of years ago, the Academy established a very complex rule book that said you couldn't even be considered for Best Picture unless you met certain criteria, like 30% of the crew or 2 department heads had to be from underrepresented groups, and a main storyline had to be as well.
Denzel Washington said it plainly. Diversity should be so normal that calling it out as special is itself a sign the problem hasn't been solved. Maher's agreement with that sentiment isn't political cover. It's the logical destination of his entire argument. The Oscars built a system designed to correct for decades of exclusion, and in doing so, they've created a new version of the same underlying problem, judgment filtered through an ideological lens rather than a creative one. But Maher doesn't stop at the diagnosis. He goes straight to the historical evidence. Because if the Academy's judgment has been unreliable for decades before any diversity framework existed, the solution was never a new rubric. The solution would have been better judgment. And that, he argues, is the one thing Hollywood has never been willing to do.
A few years ago, Denzel Washington said, "We ought to be at a place where diversity shouldn't even be mentioned like it's something special." Exactly. Sometimes I'm the equalizer. Sometimes it's an old English dude. Sometimes it's Queen Latifah. I mean, the whole thing is so Hollywood, a room full of know-nothings who call themselves the Academy, making everyone tremble before their judgment, even though their judgment is often terrible and fails the test of time. Maybe the hashtag should be Oscar So Wrong.
Citizen Kane, It's a Wonderful Life, Pulp Fiction, Raging Bull, Dr. Strangelove. None of them Best Picture winners. All of them considered among the greatest films ever made. This list is Maher's most surgical argument because it requires no political interpretation whatsoever. The Academy's track record is simply there, in black and white, across decades. The films that endured were repeatedly passed over in favor of films that didn't. Shakespeare in Love over Saving Private Ryan. Driving Miss Daisy over Glory. Crash over Munich. The pattern isn't ideological. It predates every modern culture war by half a century, which means, Maher suggests, the Academy was never as authoritative as it claimed to be. It was always a room full of people voting on consensus, not excellence. And the new diversity criteria didn't create that problem. It just gave people a new reason to pretend it doesn't exist.
Citizen Kane, It's a Wonderful Life, 12 Angry Men, Singing in the Rain, Dr. Strangelove, Raging Bull, Pulp Fiction, goes on and on. Not a single Best Picture among them. Brilliant, brave, groundbreaking, intellectually honest films constantly lose to much more forgettable, trifling, sentimental stuff. Saving Private Ryan lost to Shakespeare in Love. Sunset Boulevard lost to All About Eve. Glory to Driving Miss Daisy. Gangs in New York to Chicago. Munich lost to Crash. Citizen Kane lost to How Green Was My Valley, whatever that was. Reds lost to Chariots of Fire.
Al Pacino in 5 of the greatest performances in the history of American cinema. 0 wins. Then one screamed line in a film about a blind man, and suddenly the statue arrives. Maher's point here isn't about Al Pacino specifically. It's about the pattern. Hollywood doesn't reward greatness. It rewards moments that make the rewarding feel meaningful. The makeup Oscar, as Maher calls it, isn't a correction. It's a PR move. And the same institution that operates this way on acting awards operates the same way on everything else. The social stances, the endorsements, the causes, the political messaging. The common thread isn't principle, it's optics. And that at the end of every argument Maher made tonight is the thing that the American public has quietly figured out. They see the performance. They recognize it for what it is, and they are done pretending they don't.